Okay, good afternoon, good evening, good morning.
Hello.
I don't know, you might be watching from some other country. This is Hasper TV here, and this is Harry. And I've got Justin back with me. Hey, Justin, you right?
Hey, how are you? All right.
Yeah, all right. And I've got Muzzy. He's a Fulham fan. He's been on the channel before. You're
Hello,
right.
hello.
Sound all good today, yeah?
Everything I can hear you perfectly. Good.
So, Justin, if you don't know, me and Muzzy tried to do a stream sometime last year, and we couldn't hear each other.
That must have been quite interesting. So you're fair, just doing it with holding up pieces of paper.
So it was quite an interesting stream, put it that way.
It
All
was
right.
interesting because I had to get my other phone so I can listen to the podcast and then hear me talk.
All right, it's got 4 viewers watching. So guys, hit like and subscribe. And if you don't follow JJ Coda on Twitter yet, please go follow him as well. And if Muzzy wants to plug his Twitter later on, we'll do that a bit later. So okay, so I think I'll start with the Spurs stuff first because the past week or even just 2 days has been nothing short of just mess. So Justin, where do you want to begin?
Cool, blimey, where do we begin? You just almost look at, after the disaster of the North London derby, you almost sat there and thought that the club really needed a week that was going to be strong, that was going to basically say, no, we can't have this. We can't have a team that, have just bypassed us, absolutely sailed right past us. We can't have that. We've got to get on the front foot, get the Porro deal done, get the Trossard deal done, get players in that shows actually we're going to get behind this manager, we're going to back him, and we are going to really kick on. And what we have seen is almost like you thought that week was bad. Watch this, because this week has just been diabolical. I mean, you've got the City game, and I'm not talking about the first half, because I thought we kind of did quite well. Okay, City with a better team, but we did what we needed to do. That 45 minutes from our defence was appalling. It was absolutely appalling. It was absolutely horrific. But we then hear that the club are just going to focus on that in the summer. Well, mid-table then in that case. If ultimately you're prepared to run the rest of the season with having, Dyer as your options, Ben Davies as your options, Perisic, he's normally pretty good. It's harsh that he had 3 mistakes, but also Hugo Lloris, if you're going to run with that and then your backup's going to be Tanganga and Sanchez, I mean, I can imagine there's not a single one of those that Muzzy would turn around and go, oh, yeah, I'll have them at Fulham, because I don't think they would have touched any one of them. I'd struggle to think of a Premier League team that would take any one of them. So I thought, that it can't get any worse than that. Then obviously we hear everything that's come out with regards to Paratici, and obviously the notion that the club has just chosen not to comment on it and almost just ignore it, which I feel is, again, quite ignorant, and I think it's just the MO of the owners to just disassociate themselves from the fans, because this is a concerning thing. This is the guy who is meant to be running our football operations. Obviously Conte runs the team. This guy runs the football operations, and we don't even know, what is going on. It just seems, we're finding out from other sources. It's again another poor showing. We then had the the protests on
I
Saturday.
went actually, Justin.
And do you know what? I sort of looked at that and, okay, wasn't a big number there, but it's got to start somewhere. And one of the things I think that I really took from it was the fact that there were people there that this is something that it doesn't just go away. This is something that is building more and more and more. And the club will have to recognise, because if we don't sign anybody come the City game, and we're still, and obviously today we had the situation around Conte and, Di Marzio coming out and saying, no, going in the season, oh no, Tottenham have offered him a contract. Sorry, this is clear as mud. And it just shows from top to bottom how much of a mess this football club truly is. And as I said, if there's not any form of clarity, because also as well, the club still haven't responded to the supporters trust, which a lot of people have questioned the supporters trust, but ultimately the Supporters Trust are going to look at that, and especially if they go through with what they're planning to do, which is to do it in February, unless what comes up in February, unless what they say is absolutely spectacular, the plan's going to be amazing, the Supporters Trust are just not going to buy it. And when you look at what, as I say, happened yesterday, and obviously there's planned further protests, rightly so, I believe, for the City game, it is going to become more and more toxic because the season's dying away. We're not getting top four. And if we don't sign anybody, we're certainly not getting top four. So people will look at it and go, well, we'll be safe. We won't get relegated.
Are you sure?
Well, if you look at the points that we've got, I do believe that we've got enough points on the table so far. And I do feel that we will pick up enough. And ultimately, when you look at some of the players who will leave in the summer, they won't want their value to drop. So Harry Kane will want to keep his value. I wouldn't be surprised if Romero puts in a transfer request. You know, Bentancur might. You know, Kulusevski. These are players that are top draw. Are they going to want to stay at a club that feels like a sinking ship? You know, so ultimately, I don't really. And based on what we saw against City in that second half, are we actually going to win at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium? I genuinely don't see it. I think it will be something similar, maybe worse. So I do feel that it is, you know, this has been a very, very toxic week for Spurs, of which next week, obviously, is going to start with playing Fulham. I've got no hope on that one at all. I really don't. Not just because of what I've said, but because if you look at Fulham as a whole, I think, you know, they've learned a lot from their mistakes. They've got a good manager. They've got a good setup, good players in there. And I think, you know, who here is going to sit there and go, do you know what? I think Eric Dyer is going to boss Mitrovic. No, Mitrovic is going to absolutely
like, no.
destroy him. So that is also not going to sort of help with it. And as I say, this is the problem that we've got. We've come off really a couple of bad weeks, and we've only got, what, 10 days, I think, just under 10 days. No, 9 days left of the window. And we're still no further than when we were on the 1st of January. So it is worrying. It really is. And it will be interesting to see if Tottenham have got something planned, because at the moment it just feels like we're heading towards the iceberg of the Titanic, but everyone's watching it happen. That is how it feels. And I don't feel there's much positivity that's going to come over the next 9 days. I could be wrong, but everything I've seen so far doesn't go that way, sadly.
Well, before I go to Muzz, I just want to ask you one question, Justin. So with Paratici, obviously it's very unclear whether the guy can still be involved in transfers or not.
So my understanding is that he is able to. Basically, from what I did, a bit of digging and looking into it. So as it stands at the moment, he can't be employed in Italy. The ban is for Italian football. So, and it's for a 2-year ban. Obviously, it's up for appeal. I think that's possibly why the club are not putting anything out, but I still think they should have. I think they should have come out with a statement to say, because of there is an appeal process, we are choosing not to comment, and we will continue running in the model that we are.
Big up, David. You're right, mate.
You know, you sort of then look at, in terms of, obviously, that he can still operate. So he can still, I mean, obviously, will he operate? Because I mean, he looks like he's doing more looking than cooking, as far as I can gather, really. You know, so, but obviously there's a lot that hinges on the appeal, because if the appeal gets rejected, if the appeal gets overturned, obviously then it's just, he'll carry on as it is. If it gets rejected, obviously there's a request for UEFA and FIFA to acknowledge this ban worldwide. So I think UEFA and FIFA are holding off on that at the moment until they know more about the appeal, because that's what has happened. My only sort of thing with that is, obviously, how far does this appeal go? Obviously, I know it's going to, I think, the Italian authorities. Then, obviously, I assume if it gets rejected, it'll go to the Court of Arbitration for Sport. This could drag on for another 6 to 12 months, perhaps. Who knows? And again, it's sort of, it just marks, Tottenham with another sort of embarrassing situation on their hands. So, ultimately, for somebody who is meant to be doing so much in terms
Okay.
of, building
I
up
was
this
not
club.
the Cyprus flag, actually. Okay, I'll speak about that in a minute.
No, it's
Yeah,
good that they
I'll
overturned
speak about that
that.
in a minute. Yeah.
But yeah, in terms of the Paratici thing, my understanding is Tottenham are going to allow him to continue his position pending the appeals. And then it goes from there, really. I mean, as I said, he's not doing much at the moment, so I don't think they're that worried.
So like, in my opinion, also we have the whole. Obviously, in my head, when I first heard the news, I'm like, this guy's going to give his post-match transfer stuff in jail or something, because he does a post transfer thing, right? So that was the first thing that came to my head. So that's why I think they kind of delayed this whole Paratici coming out thing as well, because obviously we don't know what's going to happen to him. Okay, so now I'm going to go to Muzzy first before we speak about the Cyprus flag. By the way, this guy's name is called Harry as well, so big up Harry. These guys aren't Greek, so I have to say Harry. So Muzzy, looking as an outsider into Tottenham, what do you think the problems are? And what is, say, the difference? Because Justin pointed out the fact that he looks at Fulham and you guys learnt from your mistakes, and he looks at Tottenham, we never learn from our mistakes. So what is your take on it all?
I mean, it's about time we've learnt from our mistakes. Everyone's calling us a yo-yo club that we keep doing substitutes with Norwich and all that. It's about time that we've got a stable manager who's adjusted his philosophy in the Championship and he's bringing it out even better in the Premier League.
But as in as an outsider looking at Tottenham, what do you see the problems being? Apart from everything, is there any specific things you want to talk about?
Levy needs to stop being stingy and just like get his hand out his pocket. If he wants your club to be successful, he's got to start sending some money, and not just on any Tom, Dick, and Harry. I mean, on top quality players.
No, I mean, I know it's very easy to say, but for example, when I look at Fulham, I will talk about Sessegnon in a second because I want to get your take on that again. But I know Justin doesn't rate Sessegnon either. So, but as an outsider, obviously Fulham is a team who I am assuming, right, they have less revenue than Tottenham, right? But you guys have a more synchronized, you actually have a plan. So what do you think is like the major difference for a team that say earns less, but then is getting more out of the resources they have compared to Tottenham? Like why do you think that's the case?
I think more passion. We're getting the passionate players rather than the ones that chase the money, that have been in the fame and the European football. We're getting players that are good at playing together rather than just getting that name just to please the fans. I feel like Perisic, he's a good player, but he's a crowd pleaser. Longley from Barcelona?
Yeah, Barcelona.
And another crowd pleaser, like, oh wow, we've got a player from Barcelona. Doesn't mean he's going to be good. It's just from Barcelona. I mean, we got Andre Schürrle a couple of years back, and he was all right. We got Loftus-Cheek from Chelsea on loan, and he's playing better at Chelsea than he did for us. And we're thinking he just used us to get fit. That's it.
Yeah. So, yeah. Hey, Savio, you're right.
Yeah, he's right with that. That's why I think it will drag itself on. I mean, obviously, in terms of what you were saying there about Fulham, I think it's been done. As I say, I think there's been a lot of lessons learned, and I think that is probably the key difference. Obviously, when Fulham came up last time, as you say, they bought there was a scattergun approach. It was very much just get players in, and we're gonna shoot up the league. And obviously, these players had no connection, no sort of bond or anything like that. And then when you sort of look at what they have done now in terms of when they came back up, it was a better balance. I think there was a lot of understanding about the fact that they weren't just going to shoot up the league, that it was going to be one of those things that takes its time. And when you actually look at it against the other teams that came up, they're doing it much better approach, but almost as well, less drama around it. Obviously Nottingham Forest just went and bought everybody who was available. Bournemouth, obviously had the issues with Scott Parker, and obviously you know about Scott Parker from his time at Fulham in terms of what he can be like as a character. You know, so obviously they got rid of him, and obviously then you've got Gary O'Neill. They've changed ownership, and now they're on a bit of a downward spiral themselves. Whereas it almost feels like with Fulham, which is very unusual for Marco Silva, because when he was at Everton, I always felt that there was that feeling of him being above his station. It almost feels like he's gone to Fulham, and because Fulham is now sort of a more humble club, he's become more of a humble manager. It's almost a case of he's just looked at doing clever business, but still working with what got him to the Premier League. And a lot of the times what you find is one of the best things that you can do is almost focus on the spine, because obviously as long as you've got, you know, good players around you, you know, those seem to be the most sort of important ones. I mean, the signing of Bernd Leno, I thought has been an excellent bit of business. 8 million quid, I think it was. That was really, really good. Obviously, then you brought in Paulinho, who again, you know, was wanted by a lot of clubs, and obviously you've got him in, and he's been absolutely excellent, sort of marshalling the, you know, sort of in front of the defence and then sort of pushing it on from there. I was quite surprised, obviously, of how actual positive it's been having Pereira. You know, that you got from United.
Really well,
he's done well as well, and I think then obviously if you look at, you know, when you got as well Carlos Vinicius, who, you know, okay, he's not a top player, but he's still somebody that you know full well can come in and do a job for you. And then you just look at the players that you look, and Chris is probably sadly right with that, but you know, you look at the players then that have come around it, they know that there is still that togetherness, you know, there's that sort of humbleness about them that just ultimately means that they will just go about doing their business. And obviously the biggest thing for Fulham will be next season, because what they will need to do is a bit like what a lot of clubs have struggled with, which is a second season syndrome, you know, how they sort of build on from there. But credit to them, and also credit to Mitrovic, because obviously when he came up, he was a fantastic goal scorer in the championship. Reminds me a lot of Timo Pukki, brilliant in the championship, but seemed to struggle in the Premier League. Whereas now he's got, you know, like Willian being able to ping balls in. I mean,
he probably won't score against us, isn't he?
You know, really? Well, I sat there when Fulham brought in Willian, I thought, oh, are they going backwards by bringing him in? But he's been humble enough. He's done an excellent job, and he's been brilliant for him. So I think when you look at the big difference between Fulham, I think if this was the Fulham that were last up under Scott Parker, I would have said, actually, there's no difference. It's a complete mess, and there doesn't seem to be any sort of clear-cut direction as to what they're looking to do. Whereas now it seems like there's a lot of lessons learned. You know, they've, you know, learned from their mistakes, and that they are trying to build slowly, you know, almost like to walk before they run. So I would say that's where the clear interest will be. And also as well, you know, they've made Craven Cottage back to what it used to be when they were first in the Premier League, which was quite a fortress. It was a very difficult place, you know, to go. So I think that's not going to help us at all, because ultimately the crowd will be rocking. They'll know of all the turmoil at Tottenham. And if I was a Fulham fan going to that game, I would be like, right, on them from minute one. There's not, you know, we know full well. And also, if we can get at their defence, I mean, what was that? I think I worked out, someone said in the last 10 games, we've conceded 21 goals. You know, if you're Fulham, you're like, that should be meat and drink. That really, really should. So that's the part that yeah, absolutely. I as I said, I'll give a prediction later, but I'll spoiler it out. It ain't good for Spurs. Really not.
Yeah, Justin is very honest, so you're right, Muzzy. But I thought we'll just talk about the Cyprus flag quickly, because I was at the protest yesterday, and surprisingly there was someone from Greek TV there, and he interviewed me, a couple other Greek people, and of course Stel. So I gave my take on it. So I kind of took this quite personally, I have to admit. And I do know the people who actually own the flag, or partly own the flag. He's actually one of my friends. So for them to take down the Cyprus flag and then say not take down all the other flags, it came across as quite prejudiced. Now, eventually, they got it back. I'm not going to tell the story because I don't want to say it on live on what actually happened, but
Mhm.
they did get it back on. Now, Muzzy, I think you're Turkish, right? Aren't you?
Yeah.
So what did you think of them taking away the flag?
I mean, I just
Has that
think
ever happened at Fulham? Like, I don't know if you guys have flags or anything like
we
that.
don't really have flags at
No,
Fulham.
okay. All right.
We got clappers and cheese balls. That's it.
All right. Okay. But like, what was your take on it? Because it was specifically the Cyprus flag that was taken away.
I don't get why Tottenham wanted to take it down in the beginning. It's been up for so long. Like, if you watch the games on the TV, you know exactly where that flag is.
Mm.
And I don't get why Spurs wanted to take it down in the beginning.
Because they didn't really give an explanation. Apparently, they just messaged the person that owned the flag, and they said to him, "It has to go down permanently." There was no sort of like pre thing before that. It was just that.
But he takes that flag home and away.
Yeah. He
So
does it
I
home and
don't get
away.
why now he's suddenly Tottenham have suddenly just turned around and said, "Oh yeah, you know what? We change our mind now. We don't want that flag up." And then a couple of hours later, we change our mind, keep the flag up. It's a bit of a confusing one. Like, I don't know what's happened at Tottenham.
Yeah, I can't like divulge into what actually happened, but
Yeah.
just to summarize, it's in the sense that certain people messaged the supporters trust and said to them, this is prejudice, etc. And then they messaged people with other flags, and they said, if this is happening to us, like, why is it not happening to you, sort of thing. And then eventually it got back to the supporters trust and the club sent back a message to the people who own this flag and said, you can have it back now. I know it's a bit stupid, isn't it? Really, that's just a summary. I can't divulge into like more information because it's live on YouTube and stuff.
Yeah,
but Justin, what did you think of that? Because
I think
why would the club do that? It just doesn't make any sense to me.
Again, my only sort of I'm assuming, but obviously as you say, I know sort of very little about it, but my understanding, or from what I can probably see of it, is whether they were trying to sort of be almost come across as they didn't want to pigeonhole themselves and almost sort of discriminate against others. But obviously, as you've rightly pointed out, they did turn around and say, well, our flags haven't been told to be taken down. I think as well, the only other things I can think about is, the whole social fan environment. If you look at it now, Tottenham's primarily, a lot of its fan base is social fans. And to be fair, a lot of clubs have them, and we've got an amazing stadium where fans can come, and you have the bar, and you have people singing and all of that palaver and everything else, which from a social environment aspect is something that people enjoy. Obviously, the hardcore football fan, as Muzzy rightly pointed out, with some of the things that he gets at Fulham, I think if he turned around, walked in and he saw people singing and dancing, in the foyer or what have you, going into the seats, he'd probably going, what are you on about? What is going on? I don't care. I've come here to watch my football team. Whereas from a social aspect, I think it's that. And all I can think, and to be fair, this isn't me saying this is the reason. It is kind of putting 2 and 2 together to make 18, which is what I think the club have done. Is almost they just want to try and neutralize the whole thing. So whether it was a case of it starts with that, because that, sometimes what you find in a lot of other environments is you start with one thing, you see what reaction you get, and then you move on to the other. So whether that was the plan, but however, was a very poorly executed plan, because as you've rightly said, if you can't turn around and single out one specific type of flag, which is what they did. It's a Cyprus flag, so it's the Cyprus community that would have been looking at that, and to turn around and just take that off and then leave the others, it does come across as quite prejudice. But as I said, for me, I feel it's a very much an ignorance of the club. It's a disconnect from the fans. As we heard, I think it came back from the supporters trust. If I'm correct, it's the supporters trust that announced the flag could be back. So it wasn't the club. There was nothing from the club in the whole thing. Nothing has come from the club publicly to apologize or anything else. And this is, I think, where one of the biggest issues truly is the fact that the club is so disconnected from its fans that there is no. I think if they'd have come out and had put out a statement to say why they were doing it, I think people would have understood, okay? Because ultimately there is an expert. You may not have liked it, but you would have understood there is a rationale behind that. When you turn around and just get rid of something and tell that person you can't do it, but give no explanation, give no reasons to why, and also don't explain why others can stay, that is very, very, very ignorant and almost belittling. It's basically saying, well, we will do what we want and you will just fall in line. And I think the problem is that, again, it just continues on with what we're seeing from the owners, from Daniel Levy, this just complete disconnect in terms of, why they do certain things. Because at the moment, certain things happen and nobody knows why they do, to be fair. And I don't get, obviously, because Paratici's meant to be coming out with this statement in February. I don't get how he's going to, because if he goes to the press, everyone's going to be talking about the Juventus thing. Not one person is going to care less about his vision for Spurs. It's like, okay, so why can't you work in Italy? What do you do? It's going to be all of that. So it just, as I said, to me, that Cyprus thing, I looked at it and it was just almost like oh, you've done it again, haven't you? You've done it again, and it's almost like it's unnecessary. It just felt completely ignorant and completely unnecessary. And it is now for people who are, going into being ENIC out and Levy out, that will grow, because you've upset a community who rightly feel aggrieved, and that shouldn't have happened. It shouldn't even have got that far. But ultimately, we'll just look at it and go, you don't care about the football fans. You care about the business, but you don't care about the football fans.
I mean, taking away the fact it's Cypriot and that sort of thing, it's almost like I feel like they're trying to alienate actual proper fans and trying to get rid of
to be honest, it doesn't matter what
fans.
You could be anybody. It doesn't. Just because it's a Cypriot flag doesn't mean that it's being against it. It's about anybody's flag that has been there and they have decided to do it. They will be alienated by it, and that, as I say, is where ultimately seems to be more of a drive towards the social fans. Because I can guarantee this from what I've seen. I think if Tottenham, if you could guarantee this football club will finish in the top 10 every year, getting the Champions League once or twice, maybe win a trophy, I think the owners would take it, because they'd have money pumped in from the stadium. They would be getting money pumped in from other sources and probably would be able to do it on a budget. So it just really feels that this was just another one of those things where the club just sat there and thought, it doesn't appease our social fans, which is where I think we're starting to, the disconnect starting to come bigger and bigger and bigger. It's
like they don't really care. Okay, so Savio's asking, what does the panel believe will happen to Spurs January transfers after James Conte will not be manager? Justin, do you want to do that first?
Okay.
Are we going to sign anyone in the next 10 days?
I honestly don't know, because regardless of whether Conte stays or goes, I think we're at a stalemate with that situation, and I don't believe that stalemate will get sorted until the summer. Personally, I think that the club need to make it very clear to Conte, are you staying or not? Because if you're not, go now. Thank you for what you did, being a great servant. But at least then we can just explain to the fans, look, we got rid of him because he didn't want to fit within our vision. We might not like that vision, but then at least you can get something you can build on. At the moment, it just feels like a waste. But going specifically onto, that question itself about Spurs' transfer business, I genuinely am not so sure they will. Because if you look at, they got their fingers burnt with Emerson Royale. Emerson Royale, they bought him for what, 22 million quid from Barcelona, a right back specifically designed for Nuno Espirito Santo, who they then sacked. They then bring in Antonio Conte, who does not play with right backs, does not play with full backs at all. He plays with wing backs. Okay. And the wing back role is one of the most important roles in his team. And we're at a situation where they have not addressed that at all. So since Conte has been there, we've had no wing backs, possibly Perisic, but I believe Perisic is better suited as one of the front three than as a left back. He has done it, but I think he's more suited up there. So people will say you brought in Perisic, but I think he's more of a versatile player, really, who should be used in, different options, whether you want to take Cess out or whether you want to take Son out, however you want to do that. So, but ultimately, specifically left wing back, right wing back, not a single one has been brought in designed for that role. Are they going to go out and pay this release clause? Because hats off to Sporting Lisbon, they've made it very clear. This is the price. Either pay the price or go away. Okay, it's as simple as that. We're not arguing about it. We want that. And ultimately, Tottenham are arguing about it because of the fact, I think the concern being is if Conte goes and they get somebody who plays 4-4-2, that wing back is then totally pointless. So, and again, to me, I look at the business that Tottenham should be doing that fits in with any manager should be defenders. I truly believe
centre halves.
Yeah, absolutely.
Halves.
That Hincapié from Bayer Leverkusen, Indicia from Eintracht Frankfurt, De Vrij from
I
Inter
heard
Milan.
Justin Indicia is a good idea, but I heard he might be going to Arsenal. It might be done already for a pre-contract.
Well, you say that, but then obviously they've just gone or they're in the process of signing someone from
Polish centre-half.
Yeah, Polish centre-half from Spezia. So I don't know where Indicia would fit within that, because obviously they've got Gabriel, they've got Saliba. They'll have obviously Rob Holding. Whether they'll get rid of him, I don't know. But then obviously you've got Ben White, who I think they've kind of more converted really with him. But I think adding Indicia into it, he will be down the pecking order. So you would realistically think that he is more suited to coming to Spurs, especially as you could just turn around and spend 20, 30, well, let's say 40 million quid on 3 centre-backs, and then deal with the ramifications of it afterwards, because you need centre-backs. There's not a single team that doesn't play with centre-backs. And at the moment, we seem to be the only team who doesn't play with centre-backs apart from Romero. So you look at it in terms of what Tottenham would do. And my big fear at the moment is I don't actually think Tottenham will sign anyone, because you look at the urgency around other clubs. And I heard the agent for Leandro Trossard, what he came out with in terms of how Tottenham operated to how Arsenal operated. That is frightening. To me, I found that frightening, just because I as soon as I read it, I knew exactly what Tottenham's position was. Wait, and we'll try and get you at the end of the window. Arsenal just turned around and said, we need him. We'll give you this amount of money. Thank you very much. It's done. That is how a top club with top ambitions operate. And at the moment, obviously there's this talk of Zaniolo, but again, that's a Conte type player. And if Conte is going to go, what's the point? So I'm not convinced I'm more convinced of Zaniolo than I am of Porro, because of the fact that I think Zaniolo will be, my understanding is, a loan with an obligation to buy. Which Tottenham will probably do it in a way that they don't meet that criteria, so they don't have to sign him, unless he performs well. But Porro, to me, doesn't fit everybody's system, whereas I think Zaniolo might be more, because of the fact that he could be a playmaker, could play up top. So I think he's more versatile to what Pedro Porro is. So sadly, in terms of the question, if we are going to do any business, I think it's more probably just going to be Zaniolo, and that'll be it. More likely, though, nothing.
So, Muzzy, I'm going to ask you about Sessegnon, because Sessegnon is a big topic of on the Spurs Twitter, on Spurs YouTube, I guess. So you hear people often say, we should give him more time, or Marlon, you might know this about Marlon, Justin, but he's gone on record to say that we should play him in the 3 up top now, because obviously Son's not playing well, Muzzy. So people are saying, let's just try someone else there, right? So first of all, can you speak to me about how Sessegnon was at Fulham and what positions he played? Did you think he played well? And where do you think, if anywhere, he fits at Tottenham?
When he was at Fulham, he played fullback, and then he kind of transformed himself into a winger, and then all of a sudden became our top goal scorer in one of our seasons. He can score goals. He's a finisher. All right, compared to the last few games that I've seen him play, he can't finish. I don't know what's happened. His confidence low. But honestly, I do think he'd be a good winger for Spurs.
So,
I
so
think,
would you play him as like instead of Son? Because right now Son isn't playing well, right? Would you play him on the left, for
oh yeah,
example, in the 3-4-3? You would try that.
yeah, he's got a good pace on him. He can run past players. He can get the ball in. Just let him get his confidence back, and then let him start finishing again because he can finish as well.
Because it's interesting you say that because from the last few games I'm watching Tottenham, he missed a great chance in the derby, and also his crossing's been, as far as I've been watching with Tottenham, his crossing's been like awful.
I think it's all about confidence. He's still young. He's still got a lot to give, and give him time. I know you've already given him some time, but he hasn't been playing consistently. You got to think where he sits on the bench, doesn't play as much. He's not going to be at his best, is he?
So you think we should give him more time? That's your
100%.
opinion.
Yeah.
Okay.
If not, I will take him back.
You will take him out. Okay.
Yeah,
We've got a
free.
club now, Justin. Hey, Justin, do you want to get into this?
Well, to be fair, I actually agree with both Muzzy and Marlon because if you look at, because one of the things that Sessegnon reminds me of, and hopefully Muzzy agrees, he reminds me of what before he left for Liverpool, Fabio Carvalho was, which was a player up the top, an attacking winger who then was able to burst forward and create havoc, and he didn't have any other responsibilities. So primarily for him, it was more getting in the box, and if he needed to cross the ball, he would. But ultimately, there was a less reliance on that for him, which is why he scored a lot of goals for Fulham. Obviously, I think the difficulty is it's been a disaster from the moment we signed him, because we signed him when he was injured. We signed him for a manager who wasn't in a happy place anyway, then was sacked, then was brought in for Mourinho, who I'm not so sure he was convinced on him, because I think Sessegnon's best position is a three up, as part of a front three, very similar to Perisic. I think they both play better as part of a front three. So obviously he was trying to accommodate him for that. And I sort of feel with looking at Sessegnon, it's almost like a reverse of what we did with Gareth Bale, in that we sort of accommodate Gareth Bale to go upwards, whereas actually we seem to be encouraging Sessegnon to defend. And I'll be honest, apart from his pace, he can't defend. He's a terrible defender, he is. But in terms of from an attacking aspect, as I said, he had it in his locker at Fulham. He is young enough. I can understand why Muzzy would be saying about having him there, because I think it would give him that opportunity to play in probably what is his best position, which is off the front three. And especially as Son has been awful this season, I think we saw the best of Son when he was dropped, and then he came back in and was a sub and scored that hat-trick against Leicester.
So you think we should keep him still?
I think if ultimately you've got to look at what ultimately the club are going to do. Are the club going to go out and spend big money at all? Okay, in terms of those sort of areas, in terms of a Son-like competition, Muzzy's absolutely right. The answer is no, they're not. Okay, so you look at it, because if they weren't, and this is if anyone who says otherwise, if they weren't prepared to pay £27 million for a proven Premier League goal scorer in Leandro Trossard, who does exactly what Son can do, how are they expected them to pay anything else? So ultimately, to me, I would personally sort of say, right, don't be a left back. You are up top. You sort of go from to up there, and you play up there almost as he's saying, which I think agree with. He would be a good sort of competition for playing at Brighton for Matoma, because that is his preferred position. As I said, I cannot get my head around why at the moment, for years, we have decided we're going to still keep trying him as a left back or a left wing back when he can't defend. His crossing's questionable, but actually what he was known for and what he's brought into the club to be was someone who could play off the striker and was at the time a really good finisher.
Yeah. So do you think it's a confidence thing with Sessegnon?
Yeah.
You think? Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay. And to be fair, the problem being is that when you play for a world-class manager who wants to win now, which he did under Mourinho, which he did under Conte, they want that success now. as we've seen with Jed Spence, they're not there prepared to give them the time to help develop them into the player that they want them to be and what they can be. They need players ready-made that can do it now. And so I do feel that his confidence has been knocked. And also he's going up against, in that sort of area, really good player in Perisic, and he's not going to get the time in terms of
hey, you're right, mate.
in terms of
I know who that is, don't worry.
In terms of Perisic. So I do think it's a confidence thing, but I don't believe he'll get the time because Tottenham, as they have proven, they've not got the ambition, they've not got the time to allow someone to come in to be able to build perhaps a team around him, Harry, others like that, and build a proper project. So I wouldn't be surprised if in the summer he's seeking pastures new.
Because it's interesting you say that, because I heard on someone else's YouTube channel that there's rumours that he might get a new deal. So I was quite surprised. But he's not going to be getting game
to be
time,
honest,
so...
I mean, that will be that. To quote Conte, that'll be a club decision.
Yeah, of course it will be.
That'll be a club decision. So I mean, but interestingly enough, we heard that about Eric Dyer, and that's all gone very, very quiet. So I do sort of look at in terms of you look at what is coming out about these new deal things. I think that they do in that aspect seem to be listening, because the whole Eric Dyer new deal thing has gone very, very quiet, and his confidence is shot, and you're almost thinking that the club have gone maybe not, which is one positive, to be fair. At least they're doing something right. So I think, to be fair, with deals and things like that, I think at the moment I don't see any new deals being done for anybody until the manager situation is sorted, until they know who they're going to be playing for, who's going to want to sign a deal, who's going to want to sign a deal, and especially as our star player who's got 18 months left is looking at going, I ain't signing a new deal. You've screwed me over once, so I'm not that stupid to be screwed over again. So everyone else will just follow suit, and it won't be addressed until we know whether it's Conte or Pochettino.
So I want to touch on one more thing also, because Muzzy's here, before we get to the teams that we think we should play and the predictions, which won't be probably that great for Tottenham. But so Muzzy, you guys had Scott Parker at Fulham, right? And of course Spurs might not be with a manager in the summer, and I know Parker's been mooted before. So what do you think about Parker? Quite quick.
If you enjoy boring football, get Parker.
Okay, might suit us then.
He's also a manager that likes to spend money. Levy doesn't spend money. So he could get himself an early sacking like he did at Bournemouth, where he speaks his mind and gets himself sacked. Because, I mean, with Bournemouth, I don't get... Parker spent so much money in that January in the Championship to get Bournemouth promoted, and he's still expecting the club to spend more money in the summer. If he thinks Tottenham are going to be like that, he's got another thing coming. So, I mean, I don't think he's doing that well in Belgium. I think he lost his first game.
Did he? Oh, at Bruges. He's gone Bruges.
He lost his first game 3-1. Yeah. So, I mean, don't get me wrong, he's not a bad manager, but if you want the success in your club, don't get Parker.
No. Okay. All right. Okay. Just because I know there's some Spurs fans knocking around Twitter who might be thinking it's got Parker still. So dispel the myth before we get to
I wouldn't.
To be fair, I totally agree with what Muzzy said, because he right when he realised he wasn't going to get the backing he wanted at Bournemouth, he basically started moaning, whining, things like that to get himself sacked. And you can understand it if you're a world-class manager, but all Scott Parker has done is got 2 teams promoted from the Championship to the Premier League. That's all he's done. So ultimately, I think you can't sit there and start throwing your weight around when actually you haven't proven you are good enough to be able to do so. So in my mind, I think that would be a real backward step to bring Parker in. I really do. I don't think it would work. It'd be a disaster. It'd be like Nuno, but just a different person.
All right.
Also, if you look at it, Parker's 2 seasons in the Premier League, he got relegated. And then his last ever game in the Premier League, he lost 9-0 to Liverpool.
Yeah.
And losing, if you look back now and you look at Liverpool, you're thinking, wow, they must have been bad if you lose 9-0 to Liverpool, because Liverpool are doing so bad this season as well. So
Yeah. So, because I thought I'd ask you, because I've had a Bournemouth fan on this channel before, top guy, I can't remember his name right now, but you used to go subscribe to his channel. He said that echoed basically what Muzzy said, so I just want to have another take on it, because obviously you guys have had Parker as well, and he's ex-Spurs, so there's always that little lingering thing, that especially because we might not have a manager in the summer. I mean, who knows who's going to take over? If it's not
You might
Pochettino.
not
Who
have them in
knows?
a couple of weeks.
Yeah. They might have one in a couple of weeks. So who knows? That's what I thought. Let's talk about a bit about managers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah. So I think I'll go to Justin before I go to Muzzy on this. Do you think we'll make any changes tomorrow in the team? And are you expecting a bounce or some fight from the team after Man City?
I mean,
what do you think is going to happen?
That's a tough one, because I think the difficulty that he's got is that first 45 minutes, that wasn't bad. Okay, City were the dominant team, but if you were to go to City and be 2-0 up, you actually, I don't care who you are, if you'd have played the way that Tottenham did. Tottenham had a game plan, they executed it really well, and you kind of sat there and thought, well, actually, that is how you would expect, the team to do. So, as much as I think it pains me a little bit, the only change possibly I can see would be Royal for Doherty, and maybe Sessegnon for Perisic. But I see the rest as it is. He's not going to drop Lloris, regardless of the fact that Lloris is doing everything to be dropped. He's not. He's clearly, decided that Sanchez and Tanganga are nowhere near the same level as Dyer and Davies, which I'm not sure what level that is. I mean, you really got to question where your career is going if you're viewed as a lower standard than Dyer and Davies. He seems to heavily trust Højbjerg, even though I think he could be a little bit questionable. I think I'd quite have liked maybe for Sarr to get a run in the team, but Bentancur obviously can't be dropped. He's been brilliant. Kulusevski, Kane, and again, I don't think.
You think Son will play?
Yeah, I do, because again, I think he just feels like, if you look at it, it's no different to what Mourinho did. Mourinho just he always went with the big players because he felt there was a chance they could do it. Whereas if they're unknown, there's no guarantee. There is no guarantee. I mean, for me, I would have put, as I said, I've said every single game we've played, I'd start with Jed Spence, and I would possibly then maybe take Son out and put either Brian Hill or put in Perisic up there, or put Sessegnon or whoever up there. He's not going to do that because he knows what Son is capable of. And he takes the ignorant view, like every world-class manager does in this situation. I'll just keep playing you in the hope you turn it around. So my only change I think he'll make is the Emerson one for Doherty, because I think he'll want to go with a bit of pace, at getting the Fulham back line. I think that will possibly be where the areas would go with. I'd say that's probably the only major weakness I would possibly say. Muzzy may say differently. Is obviously the wing backs at Fulham, because obviously you brought that guy in the summer. He hasn't worked. I know you're looking at Cedric Suarez from Arsenal, more stability there. So I wouldn't be surprised if that is the route that Tottenham go down to try and hurt Fulham. But I think apart from Emerson, no, I think the rest will just be told, you did it okay in one half. Can you do it for 90 minutes, please? Which they won't.
Which is insanity, is doing the same thing over and over again.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So Muzzy, how do you think Fulham will set up tomorrow evening? Do you think we'll make any changes? I think, is Mitrovic of doubt or something?
No, Mitrovic's playing.
He's playing. Oh, okay.
Just don't put him on penalties, please. I've had enough. He's missed 3 penalties this season. I can't see him missing another one.
The Fulham one was a beautiful one, though. Sorry, not the Fulham one. The Newcastle one was amazing, though. That how he was able to smack it off both feet, I thought was spectacular.
See, I was at the game.
Yeah, he goes home and away. Muzzy goes home and away, I think, don't you? Yeah.
But yeah, I saw that and I just thought, how has he done that? How on earth has he done it?
And Sandy play right back.
It's like I didn't know what happened until my dad texted me. I was like, what's happened here? Like, because we were too busy celebrating. And I turn around and I see a free kick. I'm like, what's happened here? And then then I saw the replay and I was like, oh my God, Mitro, he needs to come off. Like, we all got really excited because if Andres Pereira is taking a penalty, we get excited, like he can take penalties. But Mitrovic has not been I mean, he scored a couple. He scored against Liverpool, he scored against Villa, but he's missed against Southampton. We already won that game. Missed against Wolves, we drew 0-0. He missed against Newcastle, and it was 0-0 at the time until Isaac scored that header in the 89th minute.
I watched that game, actually.
Yeah.
But I think our back line, if we had
Haaland just scored against Wolves, by the way. Just
obviously.
Yeah.
I'll put him on team for once.
Yeah.
But he's not captain. Mitrovic is.
Oh, okay. So do you expect Fulham to like attack us a lot tomorrow night?
100% will come out. We'll be high pressing. We'll expect hopefully some mistakes. Our back line hopefully got Robinson, Ream, Tete, and Diop. I think Tete and Robinson will use their pace, and Diop and Ream will just be absolutely solid at the back. You know, we haven't really conceded a lot of goals.
Are you unbeaten in 8 games or something?
Pardon?
Are you unbeaten in 8 games or something? Or you haven't?
Oh, we just lost to Newcastle.
Oh, all right. Before that, though, when you were unbeaten,
I think it was 5 games.
A good run, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was 5 games because we beat Palace, then Leicester, Hull, Chelsea. Wait.
Yeah, something we both get behind at least. Yeah. But as in, is there any other? Obviously, Mitrovic and obviously Vinicius being ex-Tottenham is like the obvious ones that we'll look at as like danger men. But is there anyone else in Fulham that we should be scared of? Like
most of the players.
Most of the players.
To be honest, I would totally agree with that. I mean, from what I've seen of Fulham, I mean, I was quite surprised when you brought in Willian. I thought, is this because he obviously didn't do well in Brazil? He came back in and has done really quite well, been quite humble and has settled in, knows his role, which I think is excellent. As I said, Paulinho very much driving the team forward from the middle. I think Decordova-Reid is quite, he's quite an unsung. He's been really good as well. So I think looking at in terms of, with what you have, I do think that's the real dynamic now for Fulham. Whereas in seasons gone by, it was Mitrovic. There is certainly areas that team can hurt, especially our defence. And to be fair, that's the bit that really sort of worries me. And obviously as well, you look at what they'll potentially have off the bench, Dan James, Harry Wilson, players like that who have been
stop you there. Do not call Dan James a threat, all right? He's just a headless he is a headless chicken, all right? The geezer, he is just painful to watch. Like, it's nice watching him run, but that's it. I do not want him touching the ball. I just rather him just putting pressure on players.
But then what's more tragic about it? The fact you've got him in a moaning, or the fact that we were annoyed we couldn't get him?
Yeah, right? Exactly. We didn't get him.
You got him above us, so that's the bad thing.
After this game, you can have him if you want.
to be fair, I don't think Tottenham can afford him. For probably what he's worth now, they'll probably try and haggle it down to 50 quid and a Twix. So I can't imagine that Tottenham will be able to put the money up for it.
That's a fair deal.
Yeah, they'll probably back it out then if they feel that's a good deal. They'll probably won't try and negotiate it down. But okay, so Harry Wilson then at least I know he came back from quite a bad injury, didn't he? And I think so obviously I know that he's probably more of a threat than Dan James. So, but ultimately I do feel that when you look at it. And that's the other thing that quite
half a Twix, not the whole Twix, half a Twix.
Yeah, no, you're right. We'll get one of those single Twixes for him. It's fine. We're not savages, But what again I think is really quite tragic is again we're going up against another team. When you look at the bench, that's kind of got more
better than us. It's better than us, isn't it?
Again, another tragic situation. So
do you think we made the chocolate?
It's like there's also one player you missed out on our bench. So obviously we've got Tom Kearney. All right.
Yeah, he was obviously. I think is he? Yeah, he doesn't. is he more comes off the bench now? I think
he comes off the bench, but he comes off the bench to control the game. And if he comes on, he is such a creative player. Do not let him on his left foot because he can absolutely curl on top ins.
Which I'm sure
I remember
we'll
that
do.
one he scored against Brentford in the playoff final. That was, the free kick.
Oh no, that was Joe Bryan.
Was it Joe Bryan? I thought it was Tom Kearney. Sorry,
Joe Bryan got the goal. Tom Kearney scored against Aston Villa when we got promoted the last playoff final.
Oh, that was it. So, but yeah, you look at it, and as I said, there's plenty of options, and I do think that, as Muzzy's rightly said, I think Fulham will be all guns blazing because they know full well that they can. They certainly can't let Tottenham get into the game, even if they're 2-0 up, because as we've seen, that seems to be when RMO is to start a kick on. Either when it's 0-0 and we'll go 2-0 up and then let them have a go, or it's a case of they get 2-0 up and then we start. So I think Fulham will know they've got to go for the jugular early. They've got to go out there, put this game to bed very, very quickly. And then I think it will, and also then make sure when it gets to the second half, possibly maybe when Tom Kearney comes into his own, in terms of controlling the game, because that's the part where Tottenham really seem to kick on. So, as I say, I think it will be a very interesting game. But as I said, I do think Fulham have got a real good chance here, definitely.
It's Justin. It's interesting you bring that up because from what I remember, of course, I'm probably a lot younger. Me and Muzzy are like the same age. We're probably a lot younger than you, maybe. I don't know. But back in the 90s and early 2000s, I remember Spurs being like a one-half team, and I feel like we're kind of mirroring it. Sorry, now, and this is where we're heading to like a mid-table side again. I think even next year we could possibly be in a relegation battle if our signings go completely wrong in terms of Kane leaving.
Yeah, I mean, you look at it from the 90s. I mean, obviously, you look at some of the players that we had. We had some wonderful players then. Ginola, we had, Klinsmann. You look at other sort of players that we had. Les Ferdinand was an excellent player as well. And then they were playing with the likes of Stuart Nethercott. You're looking at that, and you're thinking, really, are we just, as you say, going back to full cycle with this? So Tottenham have always been renowned for having top quality players, but will then put them with bang average, awful players. So it wouldn't surprise me if that is what happens next year. But hey, we'll see if that is the club's vision in February. Clearly.
Yeah, I'll go back to the match prediction. So Muzzy, I'll go for you first because I know you licking your lips going into tomorrow's game. So what's your match prediction?
I want to say 2-1 Fulham, just because I've got a feeling we used to concede in almost every game, so we might as well just concede a goal for fun as well this game as well. If not, then 2-0. All right, 2-1, 2-0.
Okay.
I'm going to say Willian and
yeah, that's kind of obvious, isn't it? Yeah.
Mitch Rowe.
How about Vinicius? Do you think you're not going to get another?
I don't think we even come off the bench unless we're losing.
Okay, interesting. Justin.
I'm actually matching up with what is mentioned in the comments. This is 3-1. Yeah. I think it'll be 3-1 because I think what you'll see is Fulham will go 2-0 up again. Tottenham will get a goal, push on for the equaliser. Fulham will hit them on the counter. So I'm going 3-1.
And James will get the third one.
That'll come back to bite you, that will.
Yeah.
But no, sadly 3-1 Fulham.
3-1 Fulham. I'm going 3-0 Fulham. I don't think we'll score.
Bloody hell. What's going on here?
I think we'll score. But I just feel that when we try and get the equaliser, they'll just hit us on the counter.
A couple goals if we turn up. Okay. So before I let you guys both go, Muzzy, do you want to plug your Twitter or anything, or where can people find you? Because honestly, your Instagram, all I ever see in your stories is that you go in Fulham games. Yeah. So if you want to plug that,
we'll do the Twitter one. It's just Muzzy Boy. So it's MUZZYBOII. That's my
so if you want a Fulham fan watching this, or if you want to just check out on a London team that actually has a plan, go follow Muzzy Boy.
If you want to see me wind up, if you want to see me wind up opposition fans, then I'm all for that.
Yeah. And Justin, where can we find you?
Yeah, so on Twitter, I'm kind of being a bit more even more active on Twitter because obviously from the the protest that was done yesterday. Obviously, there's a planned protest at the Man City game. It's a case of trying to help build that up. I'm part of the All Things Tottenham one, and obviously they were actually.
Oh, is that you?
Yeah, we were there.
Yeah.
We were the ones that were. As I
Oh,
said, if you look on the TalkSport website, they were the ones. We were the ones that were quoted in terms of
I
for
saw
the
that.
actual
Yeah,
protest.
I didn't know you were involved in that. Sorry, Justin.
Yeah, no, we were. I mean, obviously, we weren't.
Yeah.
I think the likes of Brian Daigle and others.
I was
were,
there.
I say, we're organising. But obviously, what we're trying to do is trying to just build on it. So I think what we did was we had one of our guys there. And then we're just trying to sort of feed in terms of just to try and get as much of publicity out there for it, but are now trying to drive on for the next one, which is the City home game. So, it's just a case of keep building that up because I just don't see this getting any better. I really, really don't. So, yeah, you'll see me as part of those two things. And then obviously, Tommy Talksport and
are you on tonight, Justin, as well?
I might be on tonight. As I say, I've got so I might be on tonight. I've got a few things to sort out, so I might be on tonight. But yeah, as I say, if anyone's got any queries, questions, give us a follow. And anyone should hopefully be able to back up if somebody, if I put something out there and somebody wants to comment on it, I'll always give a comment back. I'm not one to sort of say this is my opinion, you take it or leave it. It's a case of actually I'll explain mine against yours, and I respect what yours is. So, I know there's a lot of people out there who can be a bit toxic about it, and it's no need for that. If people want to be Levy in, that's fine. If they want to be Levy out, that's fine. But ultimately, respect what people's opinions are. Mine is ENIC out, mine's Levy out. And as I said, whatever I can do to try and help build the momentum for these owners to realise enough's enough. This vision isn't working. This plan isn't working. Either fix it or see you later. But thanks for having me on.
But before I finish that, for anyone who isn't Levy out, ENIC out yet, what would you say to them?
I think, to be fair, for anybody who is Levy in and ENIC in, I was thinking about this earlier on today. I do in a way understand it, because ultimately there are, as crazy as it sounds, there are things that ENIC have done well. They've built a decent infrastructure. They've made the club from a financial basis stable, and what they're doing is they're looking at people the likes of what we saw with Leeds, what we saw with Portsmouth, what we saw with Bury, clubs that were poorly run that just fell down the pyramid and have had to struggle to build themselves back up or have gone bust. So ultimately, they're looking at the fact that they get to go see their team play in the Premier League in a nice stadium. That I can understand. But ultimately, you could go and see any team in any stadium playing Premier League football if you really wanted to. To me, I was always brought up on the basis of you want your team to win. I can imagine Muzzy would be sitting there as well, wanting, he's not sitting there and just thinking to himself, as long as Fulham finish fourth bottom, I'm absolutely happy with that. They can finish fourth bottom every year. That's nice because we're staying in the Premier League. No, they will want to progress. They want to develop. They want to go on. They want to do things, So, and I'm no different to that. I want Tottenham to be winning trophies. I want them to be a success, because the other side of it is ultimately then you can't complain. If you're Levy in and you're ENIC in, you can no longer complain about, about Arsenal doing well. The amount of people who moan about how well Arsenal are doing, well, they do it differently. So either you get on board, you either then ask for change or don't complain that Arsenal are doing well, because what they've done is they've backed their manager, they've given him time, they've given him the players that he wants, and he's got the players out that he wants. So no one can complain about that. I'm sorry. If you're a Levy in and ENIC in, as far as it is you should almost be respectful of what other clubs are doing, because ultimately all you're really wanting is to come to a nice venue, have a nice day out, watch a bit of football, win, lose or draw, and then go home. And to be fair with Tottenham, you'll get that. But if you want to win something, if you want to be a success and you want to build a legacy at this club and see us back to the days we had before, then I'm sorry, either the owners have to shape up or ship out. Simple as that. So that would be my
echo. You kind of echo what me and Muzzy were talking about backstage before he actually came. So Muzzy was saying going on the European tour. So obviously he doesn't just want to finish fourth bottom every year.
Nobody
Yeah.
does.
Oh,
Nobody
man,
go,
that's
you know,
really
it-
possible.
yeah, I
Yeah,
mean, to be fair, it's like
Yeah.
one of the things that always makes me laugh is when
Yeah.
I think Daniel Levy came out and said we want to be competitive.
Mm.
Nobody goes into the Premier League and goes, I don't fancy being competitive. Not really going to fancy it this season. We're here. We can lose every single game. We can finish bottom, but we've had a bit of fun. Nobody does that. Everybody wants to be competitive. Everybody wants to be a success. Nottingham Forest are near the bottom of the table, yet are in the semi-final of the League Cup.
Mhm.
Not one point did they turn around and go, "Oh, what? We're in the League Cup semi-final.
Okay.
You know, it's more important to be in the Premier League." They've actually seen an opportunity. They could win a trophy.
I mean, Southampton are rock bottom.
Yeah, absolutely. Two teams that you sit there and you look at and you think, how on earth are you in the League Cup semi-final? But they don't care. To them, it is a real opportunity to win some silverware. Something, you know, I mean, that's the part that I find really just baffling about it, is the fact that, you know, you shouldn't just go into something just for the sake of turning up. That
But I
should be
think you
the
can look
whole
at something like
premise.
Newcastle, Justin, and I know people shout oil money when they've rewatched this back, but that's the point I'm trying to make with Newcastle is that they haven't spent as much as people think yet, not yet, and they've still gone out and improved their team. Like they started from the back, they bought Nick Pope, Trippier, Botman, and all for not even large fees, and they've improved their team straight away.
I think
To be
Newcastle
fair,
doing it smart.
yeah, I think that's the key element of it. It's the smart business that they have done.
We don't
you know,
even do that.
Well, but then that comes down to, you know, again, recruitment. You know, you're looking at, you could take Brighton's approach, you know, bringing in young talent that they're then selling on for massive money and just keeping it going. So ultimately, those two clubs in particular have a set direction, have a set plan. You know, we're with Newcastle, they've been offered every single player under the sun. You know, and with
was disconnecting.
I had to look at you quickly to make sure that you didn't.
I don't know. Is he frozen?
Yeah, he is on my screen.
Oh, sorry, can you see me?
Yeah, I can a little bit.
A little bit now, yeah. Yeah, now it's fine.
Yeah, sorry. I'll just keep moving.
I think Levy hacked your internet, probably.
Yeah, probably. But ultimately, if you look at Newcastle, you look at Brighton, there's a plan. They're sticking to it. They're not, you know, going above their stations. They're taking their time, but it's working. And ultimately, at the moment, Spurs is defined as a scattergun. We'll try this, we'll try that, we'll try this, we'll try that. But you work within our remit, which is
we're just a
finances.
mess, I think. We're just
absolutely. As I said, I think that's why the club is struggling to put their vision together, because they're trying to work out what that is. And I think that's the real problem more than anything else.
Okay, so before you guys go, come on, you Spurs, and Levy out.
And Enoch out.
Levy in.